The chamber stretched vast and imposing, carved from crystal that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic politics. Representative Sarah Chun stood at the human podium, her dark eyes scanning the assembled delegates from 247 species. Above her, the holographic display showed Earth in rotating blues and greens, a world the Council had debated for 3 standard cycles without resolution. Ambassador Krelok of the Varnish Dominion raised his 6 primary tentacles in the ritual gesture of dismissal. His translator rendered his burbling speech into flat, emotionless words that echoed through the chamber. The matter is concluded. Humanity will surrender 70% of agricultural output to the collective resource management system. This is standard for level 3 civilizations. No further discussion is warranted. Sarah's jaw tightened. She had heard these same words, spoken in different ways, for 18 months. The Council operated on a simple principle that had governed galactic civilization for millennia. Advanced species guided younger ones. Resources flowed upward to those deemed worthy of managing them. Humanity, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 generations ago, ranked near the bottom of the hierarchy. Ambassador Chun droned High Chancellor Vex, the crystalline being who presided over the Council. His body refracted light into rainbow patterns that most species found calming. Humans found it irritating. Your objections have been noted in the record. However, the mathematical analysis is clear. Earth's protein synthesis capabilities exceed your population's needs by a factor of 6.3. The excess will be distributed to colonies that require nutritional support. Sarah pressed her hands flat against the podium. High Chancellor, we've explained this. Our agricultural surplus feeds our expansion programs. We're terraforming Mars. We have colonies on Europa and Titan that need food shipments. We're building stations in the asteroid belt. Every kilogram of food we produce has a purpose. Sound rippled through the chamber that the translation system struggled to render laughter, condescending laughter from beings who measured their civilizations, ages in epochs while humanity still celebrated. Centuries. Terraforming, repeated Krelok, his tentacles writhing in what his species considered amusement. How charmingly primitive. The Mars project is an inefficient use of resources. The Council has scheduled that world for atmospheric mining operations in 400 years. Your colonies will be relocated to approved settlement zones. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. 400 years. To the Council, it was nothing. To humanity, it represented 16 generations. Children who would never see the red planet their great-grandparents had dreamed of transforming into a second Earth. You can't just take our worlds. Sarah said quietly. We are not taking anything, Vex replied. We are optimizing resource allocation across the galactic community. Mars contains rare isotopes necessary for quantum matrix construction. Your presence there complicates extraction efficiency by 0.03%. The math is irrefutable. Sarah looked around the chamber. The Zephani delegates, beings of pure energy contained in magnetic fields, flickered with what might have been boredom. The Throck, massive silicon-based entities, sat motionless as they had for the past 6 hours of debate. The insectoid Chitara groomed their antennae, clearly disinterested in humanity's concerns. None of them cared. None of them would ever care. I need to confer with my government, Sarah said finally. The vote will proceed in your absence, Vex stated. Your presence is not required for matters already decided? Sarah gathered her data tablets and walked out of the chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the vast corridor outside, a sound that felt lonely among the whisper-quiet anti-gravity platforms the other species preferred. Humans still walked. The Council found that primitive 2. The communication suite hummed to life as Sarah entered. Within seconds, she had a secure channel to Geneva, to the Secretary General and the assembled leaders of Earth's unified government. Their faces appeared on the screen, showing the strain of 3 years of increasingly hostile negotiations with the Council. "They're going to vote," Sarah said without preamble. 70% of our agriculture. Relocation from Mars. They're already discussing mining rights for Luna. Secretary General Kowalski, a woman who had spent 30 years in diplomatic service before first contact, closed her eyes briefly. "And our allies? We don't have allies. We have species that tolerate us because the Council rules say they have to." The Fenris Pact expressed sympathy yesterday. Today they abstained from the preliminary vote. On the screen, President Okoro of the African Federation leaned forward. "We can't survive this. If we give them 70% of our food production, the expansion program dies. We'll be locked on Earth, dependent on Council handouts forever." "That's the point," said Sarah. "They don't want competition." Every species in that chamber went through the same process. They were stripped down, made dependent, taught their place. The ones who thrived were the ones who accepted it. The ones who fought either adapted or were isolated until they collapsed. Defense Minister Zhang pulled up a holographic display. "We have options. Military options." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We don't. Our entire fleet combined couldn't defeat a single Council enforcement frigate. They've been building weapons for 10,000 years. We've had FDL for 60. Silence fell across the communication link. The leaders of humanity faced the same impossible choice countless other species had faced before them. Finally, Prime Minister Keita of the Asian Cooperative spoke. "What if we left?" Every head turned toward her image. "Explain," Kowalski said. "The Council claims jurisdiction over all spacefaring civilizations. But what if we simply walked away? Told our representatives, cut all ties, and went home?" "They'd sanction us," Sarah said immediately. "Economic isolation. Trade embargoes." "What trade?" Keita countered. "We buy advanced technology from them and pay with our resources. That's not trade. That's tribute. Everything we actually need, we make ourselves or we can learn to make. What do we import from the Council that we couldn't survive without?" Sarah pulled up Earth's import registry on her tablet. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the data. Medical technology, quantum computers, fusion matrix stabilizers, antimatter containment fields. She paused. "But we have teams studying all of this. We're reverse engineering most of their technology already. We just assumed we'd continue importing while we learned." "Assume we don't," said Kowalski slowly. "Assume we seal our borders. Recall every human from Council space. Focus everything on our own development." "They'd send enforcers," Zhang warned. "They have regulations about civilizations that refuse Council authority." Sarah felt a strange calm settling over her. She had spent 18 months trying to negotiate with beings who viewed humanity as children. She had swallowed insults, accepted condescension, and watched her species' dreams dismantled piece by piece. Something crystallized in her mind. "Let them send enforcers," she said quietly. "Let them explain to their own populations why they need to invade a peaceful species that just wants to be left alone. Let them justify the military expense of besieging a solar system that poses no threat to anyone." On the screens, she saw understanding dawn across the faces of Earth's leaders. The Council had power. Vast, overwhelming power. But that power came with bureaucracy, with procedures, with the weight of 10,000 years of precedent. They could crush humanity militarily, but politically it would be complicated. "We'd be alone," Kowalski said. "We've always been alone," Sarah replied. "We just didn't realize it yet." The vote came 3 hours later. Sarah stood in the chamber and listened as species after species approved the resource extraction plan. When it came time for humanity's response, She touched the control that activated her podium's transmitter. "Earth declines," she said simply. The chamber fell silent. "Declines?" Vex's crystalline form seemed to sharpen. "You cannot decline a council mandate." "Watch us," Sarah said. She gathered her materials and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the chamber erupted into chaos. The news feeds across human space exploded within minutes of Sarah Chan's departure from the council chamber. Every colony, every station, every ship flying under Earth's banner received the same message. Humanity was withdrawing from galactic society. Return home. Seal the borders. Prepare for isolation. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the cargo hauler Prometheus, 3 light years from Earth, when the recall order came through. His crew of 16 had spent the past year running supplies between human colonies and council trade stations. The work paid well, and it kept them connected to the broader galactic community. "Captain," said his first officer, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, "are we really doing this?" Marcus stared at the message on his screen. The official seal of Earth's unified government glowed beside the text. All human vessels were to cease operations in council space immediately and return to the solar system. No exceptions. "Set course for home," Marcus ordered. Full speed. The Prometheus wasn't alone. Across the galaxy, human ships turned away from their contracts, their routes, their carefully cultivated relationships with alien traders. Some captains argued. Some delayed. But within a week, the exodus was complete. Humanity vanished from galactic commerce as if someone had flipped a switch. The Council's response came swiftly. Ambassador Krelok appeared on every communication channel, his tentacles rigid with what translation systems interpreted as fury. Earth's irrational action has consequences. Economic sanctions are now in effect. All Council members are forbidden from trading with human entities. All technology transfers are suspended. All cultural exchanges are terminated. Sarah Chun watched the broadcast from her new office in Geneva. She had resigned from the Council delegation and taken a position as special advisor to the Secretary General. The title meant little. What mattered was the work. "They think we'll collapse," said Dr. Amara Okafor, head of Earth's Emergency Technology Task Force. She stood before a holographic display showing humanity's current technological dependencies. 3 months. That's their prediction. 3 months before we come crawling back. Will we? Asked General Rodriguez, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces. Amara touched the display, expanding sections. Maybe. Fusion reactors need quantum stabilizers. We import those. Our antimatter storage systems use Council-designed containment fields. The medical nanites treating 2 million people right now were manufactured on Varnash Prime. She paused. But we have samples of everything. We have blueprints. We have scientists who have been studying this technology for years. Studying and manufacturing are different things, Rodriguez pointed out. Yes, Amara agreed. Which is why we need to move faster than any civilization has ever moved before. The emergency session of Earth's unified parliament lasted 16 hours. Representatives from every nation, every colony, every settlement gathered physically and virtually to debate humanity's future. The speeches were passionate, desperate, and ultimately unanimous. Project Phoenix was approved with 100% support that the initiative was simple in concept, brutal in execution. Every available resource would be redirected to achieving technological independence. Universities became research facilities. Factories retooled for experimental manufacturing. The Mars terraforming project was placed on hold, its engineers reassigned to fusion reactor development. The asteroid mining operations shifted focus from expansion to extracting rare elements needed for quantum computing. Dr. Chun Wei-min, who had spent 20 years studying Council medical technology, found himself leading a team of 3,000 researchers in a facility beneath the Gobi Desert. Their task was to reverse engineer the medical nanits that billions of humans now depended on. The problem is complexity, he explained to his team during their first briefing. Council nanits use quantum entanglement for communication and exotic matter for power sources. We don't even have the tools to see some of these components, let alone manufacture them. A young researcher named Dr. Priya Sharma raised her hand. What if we don't copy their design? What if we build our own from scratch, using principles we do understand? The room fell silent. It was such an obvious idea that it seemed revolutionary. The Council's technology worked, so humanity had been trying to duplicate it exactly. But humans had always solved problems their own way. Elaborate, said Dr. Chun. Priya brought up her own designs on the shared display. Council nanits are perfect, elegant, efficient, but they require exotic matter. What if we build cruder nanits that use conventional power sources? They'd be bigger, less efficient, but we could manufacture them tomorrow. The discussion that followed lasted 6 hours and ended with a complete redesign of humanity's medical technology roadmap. It would become a pattern repeated across every field of research. Where council technology was elegant, humanity would be brute force. Where aliens achieved efficiency, humans would achieve results through sheer determination. 3 months passed. The council's predictions of collapse proved premature. 6 months passed. Human colonies reported food surpluses. The agricultural output that the council had demanded was instead feeding the massive. Research programs consuming every available worker. 9 months passed. The first human-designed fusion reactor came online. It was 3 times larger than its council equivalent and only half as efficient. But it worked, and it used materials humanity could produce without imported components. High Chancellor Vex called an emergency session of the council. The chamber filled with representatives who had spent centuries managing younger civilizations. None of them had ever seen anything like humanity's response. They should be begging for readmission. Krelok's translator rendered his confusion into flat words. Every species before them has collapsed within 4 months of isolation. The humans endure. More than endure, added Ambassador Silith of the Chitara Hive. Our intelligence indicates they are thriving. Production is up across all sectors. Their research programs have accelerated beyond previous projections. Vex's crystalline body flickered with colors that indicated deep thought. Explain how this is possible. The Council's chief analyst, a Zephani energy being named Luxor, materialized at the center podium. We have made incorrect assumptions about human civilization. Our models predicted they would attempt to maintain their current technological level using stockpiled council equipment. Instead, they abandoned our technology entirely and reverted to indigenous development. Primitive technology, scoffed Krelok. Functional technology, Luxor corrected. Their new fusion reactors are crude but operational. Their medical nanits are inefficient but effective. Their quantum computers are massive but capable. They have traded elegance for independence. A murmur ran through the assembly. This wasn't supposed to be possible. Young civilizations needed guidance. They needed the refined technology that older species provided. The idea that they could simply build their own alternatives was fundamentally challenging to everything the Council represented. What are their military capabilities? Asked General Thross of the Vryn Imperium. Luxor's energy form dimmed slightly. Unknown. They have sealed their borders completely. No council ship has been permitted beyond their outer system boundary. Our long-range sensors detect significant construction activity in their asteroid belt and outer planets. Construction of what? We cannot determine. The energy signatures are consistent with shipyard operations. But the scale is unprecedented for a civilization of their development level. Back on Earth, In the orbital construction facility above Luna, Admiral Jennifer Hassan watched as the first human dreadnought took shape. The ship was enormous, blocky, and utterly terrifying. Where Council vessels were sleek and elegant, humanity's new warship looked like it had been assembled from industrial components and good intentions. "She's beautiful," breathed the Admiral. Commander Park G-1, the ship's designated captain, smiled. "She's a monster. 60% larger than any Council frigate. 3 fusion reactors where they use one. Weapons systems that would make a Varnish battleship look efficient. Will she fight?" "Admiral should do more than fight. When we light up those reactors, every sensor in 3 light years is going to know humanity is done playing nice." The construction continued. Week after week, month after month. Humanity built not just one dreadnought, but 12. They constructed defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and every major colony. They mined asteroids not for profit, but for raw materials, to feed the endless hunger of their industrial base. They did it all behind a curtain of silence. That drove the Council to distraction. 13 months after Sarah Chun had walked out of the Council chamber, Ambassador Krelok received a message on a diplomatic channel that humanity should not have been able to access. The encryption was crude but effective, and the message was simple. The Council is invited to send a delegation to the Sol system to discuss the terms of humanity's permanent withdrawal from galactic affairs. Come in peace or do not come at all. Krelok brought the message to the High Chancellor. Vex studied it with what humans might have called confusion. They wished to formalize their isolation? "So it appears," Krelok replied. "Then we shall grant their wish. Prepare a delegation. The Council will make clear the permanent consequences of their choice." The Council delegation arrived at the edge of the Sol system in a vessel that represented 10,000 years of refined engineering. The diplomatic cruiser, Harmonious Convergence, gleamed with exotic metals and hummed with power sources that bent physics itself. Ambassador Krelok stood on the observation deck with High Chancellor Vex and 3 other senior Council members, watching the yellow star grow larger on their displays. "Primitive," Vex observed, studying the star's spectral analysis. "Type G main sequence. Unremarkable in every measurable way." "Yet it produced them," said Ambassador Silith, her compound eyes reflecting the distant sun. "Curious how unremarkable things can generate such complications." The ship's sensors began picking up artificial structures as they crossed the outer system boundary. What they detected made the delegation fall silent. Dozens of massive platforms orbited in the asteroid belt, each one bristling with what could only be weapons. Factories the size of mountains drifted through the void, surrounded by clouds of smaller construction drones. And ships. Hundreds of ships in configurations the Council database didn't recognize. Analysis. Vex demanded. The Harmonious Convergence's artificial intelligence responded in tones that almost suggested worry. Detecting 642 military vessels of unknown class. 312 defense platforms. Industrial output consistent with a Type 4 civilization, not Type 3. This is anomalous. Krelok's tentacles writhed in agitation. Impossible. 13 months ago, they were dependent on our technology imports. How did they build this? More importantly, added General Thross, the Vryn military observer, how did we not detect it? The answer came as a human voice cut across their communication channels. Council Delegation Harmonious Convergence. This is Sol System Traffic Control. You are cleared to proceed to Mars orbit under escort. Deviate from the provided flight path, and you will be fired upon. This is your only warning. The bluntness of it shocked the Council members into silence. Galactic civilizations didn't threaten each other. They negotiated. They maneuvered. They engaged in elaborate political theater that could last decades. Direct threats were considered barbaric. Acknowledge their transmission, Vex ordered. Proceed as directed. The escort ships appeared within minutes. 4 human dreadnoughts, each one a brutal statement of industrial might over elegant design. They dwarfed the Council's diplomatic cruiser, and they moved with a precision that suggested extensive training. Captain Park G1 commanded the lead escort from the bridge of the UHSF Indomitable. She studied the Council ship on her displays with professional interest. It was beautiful in the way a piece of art was beautiful. Her ship was beautiful in the way a sledgehammer was beautiful. Maintain formation, she ordered. Let them see what we've built. The journey to Mars took 6 hours at sublight speeds. 6 hours during which the Council delegation watched in growing disbelief as they passed construction yards, mining operations, and military installations that shouldn't exist. Humanity had transformed their solar system into a fortress. Mars itself was barely recognizable. The terraforming project that the Council had ordered abandoned was now complete. Atmosphere generators pumped breathable air across 40% of the surface. Cities sprawled across ancient seabeds, their lights visible from orbit. And orbiting the red planet was a station that made the delegation's ship look insignificant. The Olympus, Mong's orbital facility, was humanity's new diplomatic headquarters. It was also a military command center, a research installation, and a statement. We built this, it said, without you. In spite of you, Sarah Chun waited in the main conference chamber as the Council delegation docked. She wore a simple suit in Earth's unified government colors, and she felt no nervousness. 13 months ago, she had begged these beings to listen. Today, they would hear whether they wanted to or not. The Council members entered the chamber with their usual air of superiority, but Sarah noticed the slight hesitation in their movements. They were uncertain. Good. High Chancellor, Sarah greeted him with a nod. Not a bow. Never again a bow. Ambassador Krelock, welcome to Mars. Vex's crystalline form flickered through colors that translation systems rendered as suspicion. You wished to discuss terms of your permanent isolation. No, Sarah corrected. You misunderstood the message. We're not here to discuss our isolation. We're here to inform you of how the universe works now. The bluntness of it made Krelock's translator stutter. Inform? You presume to inform the Council. Sarah gestured to the windows that looked out over Mars. 13 months ago, you told us we were children who needed guidance. You told us our technology was primitive. You told us to accept our place in the galactic order. She paused. We declined. And now, look what we've built. Crude approximations of our technology, Vex stated. Inefficient, wasteful, primitive, functional, Sarah countered. Independent, ours. She brought up holographic displays showing Earth's industrial output, military capabilities, and technological achievements. We don't need your elegant solutions. We have our own. Ambassador Silith leaned forward, her antennae twitching. You believe this makes you equal to the Council? You are one species. We are 247. We are one species that told you no, Sarah said quietly. How many of your 247 members can say the same? Silence fell over the chamber. It was a question that cut to the heart of everything the Council represented. How many species had simply accepted the hierarchy? How many had never even tried to resist? General Thross, the Vryn military commander, broke the silence. Your military buildup is concerning. The Council cannot allow a hostile force to develop unchecked. Sarah smiled without humor. Hostile? We're not hostile. We're indifferent. There's a difference. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to fight the Council. We just want you to leave us alone. The isolation you seek has consequences, Vex said. Economic, technological, cultural. You will stagnate without access to the broader galactic community. Maybe, Sarah acknowledged. Or maybe we'll innovate in ways you never imagined. Maybe other species will notice that humanity walked away and survived. Maybe they'll wonder why they can't do the same. The threat in those words was clear. Humanity wasn't just rejecting the Council. They were setting an example. If one species could achieve independence, others might try. The entire galactic order could unravel. Krelok's tentacles formed shapes that his species used to express anger. The Council will not tolerate this precedent. Economic sanctions will continue. Military pressure will increase. You will submit or you will collapse. Or, said a new voice from the doorway, you'll leave them alone and accept that the universe just got more complicated. Everyone turned to see Dr. Amara Okafor enter the chamber. She carried a data tablet and wore the expression of someone who held cards nobody knew existed. Dr. Okafor, Sarah greeted her colleague. I believe you have information for our guests? Amara approached the conference table and activated her tablet. Holographic displays appeared showing star charts marked with highlighted systems. Over the past 13 months, we've been monitoring Council communications. Not through hacking, through simple observation of public broadcasts. Do you know what we discovered? The Council members remained silent. We discovered that 47 member species have filed formal complaints about resource allocation in the past decade. 63 have petitioned for relief from tribute requirements. 19 have attempted to negotiate better terms for their colonies. Amara smiled, and every single one was denied. Economic management requires difficult decisions, Vex stated. The Council acts for the greater good. The Council acts to maintain the Council, Amara corrected. You extract resources from younger civilizations and redistribute them to keep older civilizations loyal. It's not governance. It's a protection racket. She highlighted several systems on the star chart. These species are watching what humanity did. They're watching to see if we survive. And if we do, they're going to ask themselves why they can't do the same. The full weight of the threat settled over the Council delegation like a physical thing. Humanity wasn't just leaving. They were demonstrating that leaving was possible. In a galactic order built on the assumption that young civilizations needed older ones, that assumption was about to be tested. What do you want? Vex asked finally, and his tone carried something the translation system struggled to render. Respect. Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking out at the red planet that humanity had claimed despite being told it was impossible. We want you to acknowledge that Earth and all human territories are sovereign and independent. We want all Council claims on our systems nullified. We want our borders recognized and respected. And in exchange? Krelok asked. Nothing, Sarah said simply. We're not negotiating. We're informing. These are the new facts. Humanity is independent. Accept it or don't. But understand that if you choose conflict, we'll fight with everything we've built. And we've built quite a lot. The meeting lasted another 3 hours, but the essential negotiations were complete in those first minutes. The Council could accept humanity's independence, or they could try to enforce their authority through military action. But military action against a peaceful species that simply wanted to. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the universe looked different. Not physically. Stars still burned with the same light, and planets still orbited in their ancient patterns. But the invisible structures of power and assumption that had governed galactic civilization for millennia had developed cracks. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of his new ship, the merchant vessel Pathfinder, and watched those cracks widen in real time. His holographic display showed a Fenris trading convoy holding position at the edge of human space, waiting for permission to cross the border that Earth had sealed 5 years ago. They're requesting commerce talks, reported his communications officer. Lieutenant Shun, third convoy this month. Marcus smiled. The Fenris had been among the first to abandon humanity when the Council imposed sanctions. Now they came asking for trade, and they weren't alone. 6 different species had sent similar requests in the past quarter. "Tell them we'll consider their proposal," Marcus said, "after they acknowledge our territorial sovereignty in writing." On the Council homeworld of Vexure Prime, High Chancellor Vex convened an emergency session that felt more like a funeral. The chamber was only half full. 17 member species had formally withdrawn from the Council in the past year, citing economic pressures and resource allocation disputes. They all used the same language in their withdrawal statements. And that language had clearly been inspired by humanity's example. "We cannot continue to ignore the pattern," stated Ambassador Krelock, his tentacles hanging limply in what his species considered despair. "Humanity's independence has inspired a cascade effect we did not predict." Vex's crystalline form flickered through dark colors. The Mantori Republic withdrew last month. The Kelvin Syndicate the month before. At this rate, the Council will be reduced to core members within a decade. "It is worse than that," added Luxor, the Zephani analyst. His energy form dimmed with concern. "The species who are withdrawing are not collapsing as our models predicted. They are thriving. The Mantori have increased industrial output by 40% since independence. The Kelvins have established new colonies and systems the Council had marked as reserved." The revelation hung in the air like poison. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained control through a simple promise. Young civilizations needed guidance, and that guidance came with a price. But humanity had proven the promise was false. And now dozens of species were discovering the same truth. On Earth, in the sprawling government complex in Geneva, Secretary General Maria Kowalski reviewed reports that would have seemed like fiction 5 years earlier. Human colonies had expanded to 14 star systems. Population had increased by 30% as colonists flooded outward from the overcrowded inner system. Most remarkably, contact requests from independent alien species were arriving faster than Earth's diplomatic corps could process them. "The Mantori want to establish an embassy," reported Foreign Minister Jackson, scrolling through the day's diplomatic queue. "The Kelvins are proposing a mutual defense pact. And we have 3 more species asking for copies of our Independence Declaration." Kowalski leaned back in her chair. "We've become a symbol." "More than that," said Dr. Amara Okafor, who now served as Chief Science Advisor. "We've become proof. Proof that you can say no to the Council. Proof that independence is survivable." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Humanity hadn't set out to lead a rebellion. They had simply refused to accept terms they found unacceptable. But in a galaxy where acceptance was assumed, refusal had been revolutionary. In the depths of space between stars, where no Council ship ventured anymore, a different kind of revolution was taking shape. The Fringe Collective, as they called themselves, was an alliance of species who had followed humanity's example. 12 civilizations, all formerly under Council control, now meeting in secret to coordinate their independence. Ambassador Sarah Chun attended these meetings as humanity's representative. She sat in chambers that rotated between different species' homeworlds, participating in discussions that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. "The Council is preparing military action," reported Delegate Shorn of the Mantori. His forearms gestured to holographic displays, showing troop movements and fleet repositioning. "They claim it is routine exercises, but the scale suggests otherwise." "Let them prepare," said Delegate Shira of the Kelvin Syndicate. "What will they do? Invade 12 sovereign star systems simultaneously? The economic cost alone would destabilize their remaining members." Sarah listened carefully. She had learned in 5 years that humanity's brute force approach to independence wasn't universal. The Mantori favored subtlety. The Kelvins preferred economic pressure. Each species had found their own path to freedom, and each path was valid. The real question, Sarah said when her turn to speak came, is what we build next. We've all proven we can survive without the Council. Now we need to prove we can thrive. The Fringe Collective meeting lasted 6 days and resulted in several groundbreaking agreements. A mutual defense treaty that promised assistance if any member faced Council aggression. A technology sharing program that would accelerate development across all member species. And perhaps most importantly, a commitment to accept any species who chose independence, regardless of their previous Council standing. Back on Mars, in the city that had grown from the first settlement into a metropolis of 3 million people, Dr. Chun Wee-min gave a lecture to medical students from 7 different species. His classroom overlooked the terraformed valleys where breathable air now flowed freely. A daily reminder of what determination could achieve. Council medical technology is based on elegance, he explained, showing comparative diagrams. Minimal resources, maximum efficiency. Human medical technology is based on redundancy. Multiple backup systems, overcomplicated solutions, and generous safety margins. He smiled at his diverse class. Neither approach is wrong. They reflect different values. A Mantori student raised a manipulator tentacle. Professor, which approach saves more lives? That depends, Chen replied, on whether you value elegant solutions or accessible solutions. Council nanites are perfect, but they require exotic materials and can only be manufactured in specialized facilities. Human nanites are clumsy, but we can produce them in any reasonably equipped hospital. He paused. I prefer solutions that work for everyone over solutions that work perfectly for a few. The philosophy had spread beyond medicine. Human engineers, freed from the need to match Council elegance, had developed technologies that prioritized accessibility over refinement. Fusion reactors that were bulky but could be built from common materials. Faster-than-light drives that were inefficient but didn't require rare isotopes. Defensive shields that drained power quickly but could be installed on civilian ships that other independent species had noticed. Within 3 years, human technology was being traded across dozens of star systems. Not because it was better than Council technology, but because it was achievable. Admiral Jennifer Hassan, now commanding humanity's expanded defense fleet, watched from the bridge of the Dreadnought, defined as the first joint military exercise between Fringe Collective members took place. Human ships moved in formation with Mantori cruisers, Kelvin destroyers, and vessels from 6 other species. The coordination was rough, the tactics unrefined, but the message was clear. We stand together. On Vexure Prime, the Council watched the exercise through long-range sensors. They saw the implications immediately. We have lost, High Chancellor Vex stated simply. His crystalline form had dulled to colors that suggested resignation. Not militarily. We could still crush any single member of their collective. But politically, economically, ideologically, we have lost. Then what do we do? Asked Eloc.Vex considered the question for a long moment. 10,000 years of galactic order had been built on specific assumptions about how young civilizations behaved. Humanity had shattered those assumptions, and dozens of species had followed their lead. The Council could fight, but fighting would only accelerate their decline. We adapt, Vex said finally. We acknowledge the independence of the Fringe Collective. We renegotiate our relationships with remaining members. We transform from rulers into partners. The Council will resist, Krelock warned. Let them resist. The universe has changed. We can change with it or become irrelevant. The formal recognition came 6 months later. In a ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy, the Council officially acknowledged the sovereignty of the Fringe Collective and its member states. It was framed as a generous gesture, a magnanimous recognition of younger civilization's maturity. Everyone understood it for what it actually was. Surrender. Sarah. Chun stood on Mars and watched the broadcast with Amara Okafor beside her. The planet beneath their feet breathed with an atmosphere that wasn't supposed to exist. Cities sprawled across terrain that council experts had declared unsuitable for terraforming. And across human space, billions of people lived free from the assumption that they needed someone else's permission to thrive. "We did it," Amara said quietly. "We started it," Sarah corrected. "The real work is just beginning." She was right. Independence was only the first step. Building a civilization that justified that independence was the challenge that would define the end.